point of clarification, I absolutely today am not talking about weakness. About muscle weakness, that's a lack of physical strength or needing extra effort to get things done. There's multiple causes for muscle weakness. Could be thyroid dysregulation, could be Guillain-Barré syndrome, myasthenia gravis, other reasons for that. I'm really focusing on fatigue, that is exhaustion, being tired, having a real need to rest when sometimes it seems like we've been engaged in minimal activity. Now, some of the same things that cause weakness can also cause fatigue, namely thyroid problems, but then some of the other things that are much more about fatigue and not weakness might have to do with red blood cell count, coronary artery disease, anxiety and mood disorders, looking at the medications we take, some of the other things we ingest from alcohol, caffeine, and the like. Now, I've been in primary integrated behavioral health for about 12 or 13 years now. So I'm always intrigued, and I want to understand what are the physicians being taught? What's the language and the culture that they're brought up in that gets them thinking about fatigue? Well, generally speaking, fatigue consists, in medical textbooks, of three different things. One is inertia. That is just a real inability to initiate activity. It includes stamina. That is a reduced capacity to maintain that activity, as well as a psycho-emotional component. That is poor concentration, short-term memory tends to be somewhat impaired, and certainly a variety of different moods and, quote, mood instability. When we look at the chronicity of the duration of this fatigue, the language that's used is it's referred to as recent if less than 30 days. It's prolonged if it's lasted more than a month. And really the term chronic is only reserved or used when a person has experienced this for 6 months or more. And before I get into the data, really I want you to reflect on your own biases, your own perspective, the way that you kind of view these patients, or maybe even yourself. I mean, you can, if you're in the field of mental health, you look up DSM-4R, and does this person meet criteria for primary insomnia, or maybe chronic fatigue, or dysthymia, a mood disorder? Well, obviously we need this nomenclature for reimbursement, for communicating with colleagues, but really is those categories or those labels really all that helpful in understanding how we're going to intervene? Excuse me, because really those kind of categories tend to play a pretty minor role in how we try and address a person's energy level and boost it at all. But there still remains in 2012 plenty of people who think dualistically. They're thinking about fatigue as, oh, that's a psychological response to something. That's a mood disorder. Or it's a biomedical issue. And really, it's multifactorial. I take a much more holistic, integrative approach to things, realizing that there's a lot of contributing factors and there's a lot of dots that are connected here when we look at fatigue and what's going to be effective in treating it. Allostatic load is one of those terms that appreciates the multifactorial kind of holistic approach. And it's been embraced mainly by psychoneuroimmunologists, but other growing numbers of scientists, researchers as well. And allostatic load kind of takes into account 7 or 8 different markers of burden on the body. So instead of trying to connect, like in psychoneuroimmunology, what about this stressor or this personality characteristic? It affects your immune system in this way, and then months or years later, does it increase your chance of autoimmune disorders or flu, cancer, or whatever? Instead, the 7 or 8 things that it kind of aggregates numerically into one index are things like blood pressure, total cholesterol, as well as LDL. Body mass index, BMI, more people are using now waist circumference. Things you can't find easily on a Chem 20 panel, like cortisol, catecholamines. But when you put these 8 things together in one numeric index, it's actually the #1 predictor of how healthy you will be in your 70s and 80s. It doesn't predict how you will be a year from now or even 5 years from now, but it's the best predictor we have because it's the total burden on the body, and that will over time then be able to predict how well you'll be functioning as we age into our 60s, 70s, and beyond. Now, I will be talking about the HPA, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis today, in terms of the direct physiologic kind of processes that can contribute to fatigue. But throughout today, you'll understand the importance of a patient's behavioral response to stress and how that can play a role in energy modulation as well. So there's no evidence that you start smoking because of stress, but we know that smokers smoke more cigarettes per day when they're stressed versus low stress. Certainly, you don't start drinking alcohol, but on high stress days, you consume more alcohol, if you consume any at all, than on low stress days. We withdraw. Most of us tend to withdraw when, I'll share with you, that's actually the very opposite of really what you want to do. And physical activity. We tend to shut down, tend to, as a result of fatigue or stress, tend to slow down when in fact, we're going to see very shortly here, that's exactly the wrong thing to do.